Hello again, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode number 144 of the Scumbags Wrestling Podcast. My name is Shawn. I'm coming to you live from London, Ontario, Canada, and I want to thank you. I know we're an hour a bit later than normal on Thursday evening, but I was working a little bit later, and sometimes life happens. But I want to welcome everybody who's watching live on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. Tonight I'm writing solo because Steven is not feeling so well, and I'm going to rely on you, the fans who are watching right now, to send me messages. I'll post them, and you can add some comments, and we can have a conversation that way. For those of you who are listening to podcast version, thank you for tuning in on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you get your podcasts from. We're on 10 different outlets, and I encourage you all to like, subscribe, and share. We already made our goal of 500 fans on our Facebook page. We're almost actually at 520. I think the last count I saw earlier today. And thank you for everybody who's taking part in our Ontario Independent Wrestling March Madness tournament that's happening daily. I'll get to update on the status of that in just a little while at the end of the show. There's news, not a lot of it, to be honest. Main thing was going to be talking about the AEW Pay-per-View Revolution that happened this past Sunday instead of a Saturday on pay-per-view. Not much good coming out of it. I guess you can kind of go with what Bubba Ray Dudley said on Busted Open Radio when he quoted Vince McMahon, and being the fact that the ending is the thing that people will remember the most. WCW found that out the hard way with their career in business, because they didn't have somebody like a Pat Patterson helping them do finishes, and that was usually their downfall. Hopefully that is just a hiccup in the road for AEW, but when they got their limited fans that were there in attendance booing, and even some asking for their money back after they promised a big blow up, I get things happen, but you gotta own it, like McFoley is saying, and move on instead of trying to spin it your own way, as they did last night on Dynamite, and even right after the pay-per-view ended. Blaming Kenny Omega, blaming Impact Wrestling. We get accidents happen, but whatever. Looking at the card, though, the opening match on the buy-in was Britt Baker and Maki Ito, who was replacing Reba, faking an injury. But Maki Ito and Britt Baker defeated the team of Rio and Thunder Rosa in the buy-in. Then the main show started, and it was Young Bucks beating Jericho and MJF. Really good back and forth match if you ignore the fact that it looked like Jericho and MJF were waiting a lot for the Bucks to do their moves. They were in position a little bit early. It didn't look as smooth as it probably could normally for these guys. But the Young Bucks ended up winning. Later on the show, Jericho and MJF said there was going to be a war meeting of the Inner Circle happening in Dynamite, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Ray Phoenix was the last man standing in the Casino Battle Royal. Basically a Royal Rumble with tag teams instead, but your partner could be eliminated, but if you were still standing, you were still in there, unlike some battle royals where if you're eliminated, your partner has to go too. There was like 15 different teams, so it was 30 men involved with this match. Surprisingly, FTR was not part of that, so they all did that. A couple of botch spots. I didn't understand what Evil Uno did, eliminating himself. One Marco stunt didn't really connect with him. Then QT Marshall abandoned Dustin Rhodes. That's looking like QT Marshall is turning heel on the Nightmare family. And we saw more of that this past Wednesday as well. So Ray Phoenix, as I said, ended up winning last eliminating Jungle Boy, and Pac and Ray Phoenix are going to get a future title shot against the Young Bucks on probably Dynamite, because their next pay-per-view isn't until May 30th for Double or Nothing. Hikaru Shida ended up retaining her women's title over Ryo Mizunami. She was the one who won the Eliminator tournament for the whole thing. She won the Japanese side and then beat Nyla Rose to advance to that match. But Shida ended up retaining. Miro and Kip Sabian beat Best Friends Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor. Kind of a boring match in a way. They are starting to, though, show Miro as sort of his, I want to say Russian brute, but the brute that he was as Rusev. He even pushed Penelope Ford out of the way, sacrificed her in a way to get the victory. So we'll have to see what happens with Miro. They did get a challenge for another rematch with Orange and Chuck Taylor, with Chuck saying he'd pretty permanently Miro's butler if they lost. I don't know if I'm looking forward to that one either. Anyways, Hangman Page ended up beating Matt Hardy. There was a lot of outside interference involving Dark Order and Private Party. But in the end, Hangman Page ended up getting the victory, and he is now getting Matt Hardy's first quarter earnings. Scorpio Sky won the big brass ring that was hanging above the ring, basically ripping off the whole Vince McMahon statement of go climb that ladder and get that brass ring. And they literally put a brass ring, flotational device, it looked like, hanging above the ring in a Money in the Bank sort of ladder match, with the winner, as I said, Scorpio Sky, getting the shot against Darby Allin on Dynamite this past Wednesday as well. The big surprise in this was the sixth man, and that was Ethan Page, former member of the North, with Josh Alexander making his debut. Excuse me. So he ended up not winning, and Scorpio Sky got the matchup. Christian Cage then came out, and a little while earlier, Paul White made reference to who was signing, but didn't give away any hints. And out came Christian Cage to his old TNA music, got the full last name as well back, and he walked into the ring, just signed a contract, left it, and left. Then we end up getting the cinematic match of Darby Allin and Sting taking on Team Taz, which was Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. Excuse me. Anyway, so that was a cinematic match. Darby Allin and Brian Cage ended up getting taken out of the match, leaving Sting to take out Ricky Starks to get the victory. It's kind of odd, though, that they had the commentary over top of it. Maybe if it had just been like how the Boneyard match was, it'd be a little bit better. But Sting was able to perform in this format. Don't know how many takes were needed to splice it all together, but hopefully things were heavily padded like they were when he took that powerbomb on Dynamite a couple of weeks ago. And then it was the barbed wire, exploding barbed wire death match for the AEW Championship with Omega and Moxley. They teased going into the barbed wire, which was replacing ropes. It was on three sides of the ring instead of all on the stage. Bryce Remsburg was wearing a hazmat suit just for his own safety. They tripped a couple of the bombs, including also an exploding baseball bat. And they used barbed wire on their arms and back and forth. And then they went to the ending a little too quick, it looked like. And the Good Brothers came out, and then there was a one-wing angel on a chair. They did a beatdown of Moxley, including handcuffs, because God knows we need more handcuffs in wrestling. But they cuffed him down. The timer was still going because they said at the beginning 30 minutes or the match had to be done or the whole thing would blow up. And, well, it was done. And it was around a minute mark that was left that Omega and the Good Brothers ended up finally leaving. Out came Eddie Kingston trying to help his fallen friend, even though they were enemies for a little while, but his best friend, Jon Moxley, and nothing was happening. And all of a sudden, a couple seconds left, and you got Eddie Kingston diving on top of Moxley to protect him and basically taking the bullet. But when the countdown ended, all you saw was sparklers and a couple of puffs of smoke and a very feeble fireworks display. Even Gilbert, I think, gets better entrance sparklers than what you saw there. I posted it the other day, the next morning on our Facebook page, including a video of Marvin the Martian wondering where's the kaboom. They promised that, and it didn't happen. Once again, as I said a couple minutes ago, I get accidents happen, but then they started passing the buck and trying to spin it into a storyline. Good luck, but Mick Foley is saying own it, move on, and do better the next time. He had a incident like that in ECW, I believe, in 2005. Where it didn't blow up as proper or as expected. You know, it's not Japan where the whole thing goes up in smoke. And Tony Khan's like, well, what did you expect us to do? Blow it up? It's like, yeah, well, that's what you promised. I would have at least had better fireworks because even Cody Rhodes gets better fireworks intros. And maybe even pull the ring down like when Brock Lesnar suplexes Big Show and the whole thing implodes. At least do something. But that was AEW Revolution that happened this past Sunday. And then yesterday was Dynamite, and they continued on with some of the fallout from it. As I said, they did a whole bunch of lame excuses. Moxley and Eddie Kingston were doing their sitting down drinking together. Kingston said, though, the reason why he sold it the way he did was because he had like a panic attack like he did when he was getting sentenced and going to Rikers when he was in jail years ago. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to beat a dead horse on that one. You guys can decide whether or not you like their excuses or just want something better. But then even later on, Kenny Omega came out and they made fun of Eddie Kingston on it. Eventually, Christian was there, so it looks like Christian and Omega are going to spin off into a title program, and that's remarkable considering 7 years ago Christian Cage was not wrestling, and he goes over to AEW and he's in a main event storyline with the champ. So congratulations, Christian, on that one. But yeah, it's very sad that he's there in a way that WWE allowed him to slip through their fingers because he didn't have a contract after his performance at the Royal Rumble and decided to call up Tony Khan and said, I want to work. And Tony's like, I've known you for 7 years. Come on over. So all the best to Christian on that one. It's just a shame because it's a multi-year deal that we won't see Edge and Christian probably ever again, at least not in a ring together. You might see him when he finally is done with AEW and gets his induction into the Hall of Fame, and you get the 5-minute pose or 5-second pose and Edge inducting him, because it's bound to happen. He's done a lot in the business. It's just not going to happen anytime soon. Also, last night, Matt Jackson beat Phoenix. Darby Allin retained his TNT title over Scorpio Sky getting to cash in that. Inner Circle ended the show with their war room, and they were figuring something has to change and maybe get rid of a member or add a member. And out came Sammy Guevara, just as MJF was going to suggest Jericho get eliminated. And they show some footage, and Jericho's like, "You don't think I know what's going on?" And they decide they're going to turn on MJF and get rid of him. And MJF was saying basically that he was plotting it all along, but not necessarily take over the Inner Circle, because he was building the New Horsemen. And you saw Wardlow with Shawn Spears, FTR, and Tully Blanchard, and a brawl broke out that way. So it looks like the Inner Circle are going to be faces now, and you have the New Horsemen that are going to be the heels. I don't know. Maybe this is going to lead to finally them pulling the trigger on Blood and Guts, their War Game style match. They have enough players, 5 on each side, that they can do that, because there's Pride and Powerful, Jericho, Guevara, and Hager on one side, Wardlow, FTR, Spears, and MJF on the other. So maybe it's time that they pulled that. They could even do that on the Jaguars field instead of using Daly's place. So we'll see what comes up with that. Monday Night Raw, they had started off with Lashley killing Miz again, though I think Miz got in a little too much offense, but Lashley ended up retaining. We ended up seeing AJ Styles against Randy Orton, some voodoo going on with Alexa Bliss, and more black spewing out of Randy before Styles got the victory. What was it? Kofi Kingston? No, Xavier Woods, sorry, got a victory over Shelton Benjamin, leading into their tag team match. I believe that's this week on Raw. Mustafa Ali is getting a U.S. title shot against Riddle after Riddle ended up beating Slapjack on Monday. And, of course, we saw, Drew McIntyre and Sheamus in a match where then they ended up brawling. And another good match, even though McIntyre picked up a clean victory the week before. But they brawled again because Sheamus attacked him from behind earlier in the show. And they end up knocking each other out with the use of stairs, bashing into each other. I've heard that there's possibly going to be a last man standing. I hope it's not a last man standing, considering we just had one with Owens and Reigns just a little while ago. Do something different, like a strap match or something, or with the touching the 4 corners or whatever, for getting a number 1 contender shot at Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania. But there's really nothing announced for next weekend's pay-per-view, Fastlane. So they have to really get on that starting tomorrow, because there's, I think, only 2 matches from SmackDown already announced. But then also next Monday, they need to get more involved that way, because this is their last ditch effort before going to WrestleMania, and it's their first presentation on Peacock as they migrate everything over. I kind of feel bad for the U.S. fans that are going to get this, because it's not going to have everything all at one time. They have to slowly rechange digital things and closed captionings, whatever has to happen on Peacock's end. But that's rumored to be finished by SummerSlam. So people just need to be patient. I think Peacock's giving a special deal as well, just because of that, for any WWE fans. So, that was Monday. We'll see what happens elsewhere leading up to Fastlane. Then last night on NXT, it was told that William Regal's going to have 2 big announcements. And the first announcement was the fact that NXT TakeOver is going to happen on 2 nights. And so Wednesday, April 7th, they're going to be doing TakeOver. I can't think of the title at the moment, but they're going to do Takeover on USA Network on night number 1, and then the following night on Peacock is going to be night number 2. I think it's Stand and Deliver or something like that. They just recently got the trademark for, so they're going to do that on that night. Then his next announcement was the fact that due to all the stuff that happened with the tag team titles last week with Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, and including Adam Pearce, that he's just going to create their own women's tag team titles. He had all the women lined up on the ramp, which actually looked like more women in NXT than what Raw and SmackDown have combined, at least actively. And they at least could plead their case of why they deserve tag team titles, because even though the rule was that the women could float between all 3 brands, it only happened a couple times. And do you think they were actually going to let an NXT team win the titles without being brought up eventually? But they weren't going to beat a main roster team. So now they can do this and have a strong women's division compared to what the main roster has. So that was announced, and they instantly awarded it to the winners of the female Dusty Cup championship that they just finished, and that was Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. They were instantly challenged by Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon, and Dakota Kai agreed right off the bat to give them the title shot. So they did that. And Io Shirai ended up retaining her women's title over Toni Storm. I like the run of Io Shirai. I just want somebody else to finally beat her, because then Io could probably go up to the main roster and maybe do stuff with Asuka. Speaking of Asuka, though, just for a moment, Peyton Royce made a huge statement, basically breaking her own character, saying she moved from Australia to North America with nothing, no support system or anything, to follow her dream. Yet she's been slotted in this one spot, and she wants to be released to do what she knows she can do. I don't think she meant released from WWE, but released from that bubble that they have her in, and allow her to have her match with Asuka. But Asuka still has to get cleared. And of course, Chad, I'm going to mention that in just a couple minutes. But yeah, they need to figure out what to do, because even Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke want a shot, and Charlotte's there in the way. So maybe they're going to do a multi-woman match for the Raw Women's title, with or without Asuka, depending on how her injury goes. But so that is what's going on that end. I got to put that up. I forgot. This is how you can get in touch with us along the way. Anyways, Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart did take the tag team titles away from Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. So they got awarded in one segment and taken away the next, at least in a match in this case. And so new women's tag team champions, 2 sets in one evening. Finn Balor ended up retaining his NXT championship over Adam Cole, and Kyle O'Reilly returned to confront Adam Cole, while Killer Cross, or Karrion Kross, confronted Finn Balor. So those could be some of the matches we're going to see at the Stand and Deliver Takeover, possibly one on night 1 and one on night 2. But that's going to happen. So that was stuff that happened the last couple episodes of TV. Looking at some news highlights, John Laurinaitis is back. People remember Johnny Ace as being people power and general manager, but he was also the guy who took over for Jim Ross, I believe, between 2003 and 2012, 2004 and 2012. He's responsible for hiring people like Daniel Bryan, Greg Hawley, CM Punk, and a bunch of others from that era. But there's talk that some of the talent are not happy, because he's one of the guys proponent of the women being of the divas side of things, and he only was looking out for looks over talent. And so that's how we end up getting some of the women of that era with the Divas titles. But the women's division, pardon the phrasing, but it has evolved significantly since he was last in charge. So hopefully he sees what's going on and doesn't try and change anything, and we get a regression instead of progression. And he's actually the father-in-law of Dan O'Brien because he ended up marrying Bella's mom. So there's a lot of connection there, and Daniel's on the booking committee, or at least um, writing staff, whatever they want to be called, over on SmackDown. So we'll see if the family can do some good over there. But hopefully, as I said, he doesn't fall into his old habits. The former one in that position, Mark Carrano, he's still going to be around, but he's going to answer to John Laurinaitis. And yeah. Double or Nothing is AEW's next pay-per-view event. It'll be on Sunday, May 30th, and it's going to be from Daly's Place in Jacksonville. It's not going to be in Las Vegas, as they kind of hoped it would end up being. But that's also Memorial Day weekend in the United States, so it's a holiday weekend, and they could probably go as long as they want because they like going for longer shows, and people don't have to go to work or school the next day. Christian Cage, I talked about that with his approaching Tony Khan. Tony Khan also said, in addition to the addition of Ethan Page to the roster was to strengthen up the heel side of their roster after Dark Order ended up turning face with the passing of Brody Lee. There's been an edict, I guess, that the good old thigh slap that a lot of people do, including the Bucks, and Shawn Michaels even admitted that he did with his super kicks, is being banned in WWE. I know Jim Ross has a huge hate on for it and has made a lot of comments about it on, I believe, AEW Dynamite, but also in his podcast. And somehow that disgust has trickled over to the WWE side, and Vince McMahon is saying no more of this. There's apparently signs at the gorilla position to remind people, and potentially fines if they do it. So some changes that way. And I think I heard somebody on a podcast mention about it that even Tommaso Ciampa sadly did a thigh slap when kicking a flag. There should not have been any sound in that. I can understand them enhancing a kick when they were kicking a person and trying to get the effect, but not an inanimate object like a flag. So I can see where that comes in. Sting's next opponent looks to be Lance Archer. Missed that on the review of Dynamite from last night. The Rock and his ex-wife Dani Garcia, along with their company, who own the XFL, are actually looking to team up with the CFL here in Canada, and there could be some cross-promotion branding going on, which would be amazing for both organizations, I think. The XFL did have a chance had Corona not happened. Vince's second vision of the company did seem to be successful, but had to shut down way sooner than it should have. And that's when they declared bankruptcy, just as I feel a business decision. But they needed to do that. And that's when Dwayne and Danny swooped in and picked it up. They were going to try for season, but they are delaying it a bit now that they're teaming up with the CFL. And people remember that Dwayne used to play in the CFL for the Calgary Stampeders. So I can almost envision it being almost like baseball, where you had the XFL be American teams, the CFL being Canadian teams, and if they cross each other, depending on which stadium that they're playing in, they follow that league's rules. So if an American is playing in Calgary, say, they play by the 3 downs rules. If, say, the Edmonton team goes to New York, then they play under American rules. So it could be a good concept that way, with the finals being an American team versus a Canadian team in a sort of Super Bowl Grey Cup aspect. So good things coming possibly in the 2022 season with both these guys teaming up. Randy Orton is currently in a Twitter battle with rapper Soulja Boy, who constantly is calling wrestling fake and almost challenging people to fight him. Randy Orton is wanting to kick his ass. I guess he's also had issues with Alexa Bliss and a couple other wrestlers. So another guy just trying to get some publicity, which fine, whatever works for you. Was announced just the other day that the NHL has made a deal with Disney and ESPN to go to the 21-22 season, going to be on ESPN. And the USA network or NBC Universal deal actually ends at the end of this year's Stanley Cup playoffs. So with that news, it might mean that the suspected thought of NXT moving from Wednesdays to Tuesdays to make room for the NHL might not be a permanent move if it has to happen during the playoffs, but it might not happen at all depending on how timing goes. And the Wednesday night wars that people still want to have might still continue if it's not going to be affected by the NHL. Of course, everything's going to be up to what NBC and USA end up doing with that night. If they think that the ratings are low, it's not necessarily WWE throwing in the towel, but it'd be the network doing it for them, hoping to get a better rating somewhere else. Because they did get good ratings on Tuesdays when they weren't head-to-head with AEW. So that would prevent allow fans not to have to choose, but we're just going to have to wait and see. But it's definitely not happening anytime soon because, as I said, we have that whole week of wrestling coming up in April. AEW has filed for a trademark for the name Captain Insano, which was Paul White's character in The Waterboy, the movie 20 some odd years ago. Looks like they're going to use it possibly for their video game. And if they get that rights, then, well, I've done their character for Paul White. WWE still hasn't announced where they're moving to their next Thunderdome because Major League Baseball starts very soon, and the Tampa Bay Rays are going to need their field, which they're using right now, Tropicana Field, for the Thunderdome by April 9th because they're hosting the baseball game that day. So, and that's supposed to be the night of SmackDown go-home show for WrestleMania. Hopefully they find another place. Obviously they need to, unless they're going to just go to the Performance Center and just mingle all the talent together. And the plane ride from hell is going to be on the Dark Side of the Ring Season 3. JR was just recently interviewed for it. He's not a fan of that whole thing because he was the one in charge of talent at the time, but they're going to dig deep into that one. It was where Ric Flair was quite intoxicated and undressing. I thought it was in front of Linda, but report I heard was Stephanie. So either way, he was dressing in front of one of the two McMahon women. You had Scott Hall and getting really drunk. I think Kurt Hennig and Brock Lesnar got into a fight. There was a fight between Michael P.S. Hayes and JBL. Just craziness. So season 3 of Dark Side of the Ring is going to have a lot of things, including Brian Pillman, the plane ride from hell, the Smith family, and I think they've got 14 episodes scheduled for this season. Speaking of what I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, with the week of WrestleMania, there are going to be 8 days straight of WWE content. More is definitely more with this company because on Monday the 5th is going to be Raw on USA, so that's 3 hours there. Hall of Fame is going to be scheduled for the Tuesday the 6th, and they're actually going to do both inductions of WWE Hall of Fame 2020 and 2021, whereas Chad is reminding us that Molly Holly is going into the Hall of Fame. Congratulations to her. Yes, indeed. That was announced the other day on the bump by Shane Helms, who announced that. So that's going to happen. Night 1 of Takeover is going to be on USA on Wednesday. Night 2 of Takeover is going to be a Thursday on Peacock or the network everywhere else. Friday is going to be Fox with SmackDown, and then Saturday and Sunday is night 1 and 2 of WrestleMania on Peacock / the network, and of course it wraps up on Monday, the 12th, with Raw on USA. So 8 days straight of action from WWE celebrating WrestleMania week, and we get, as I said, the Hall of Fame with Molly Holly being 2021 inductee, and Chad is also saying with fans. The Hall of Fame, I do not think is going to be with fans. Their first chance with fans is going to be with WrestleMania, and that actually starts ticket sales this Tuesday. And they're going to have limited package deals, and they're going to have individual seating. I think they're going to try between 25 and 30,000 fans in attendance. My dog is howling upstairs. Sorry, I'm just distracted by that for a second. It might be a siren going off somewhere. But the 2020 Hall of Fame is going to be inducted, and that includes the NWO, Hogan, Hall, Nash, and Waltman, Batista, the Bella Twins, JBL, Davey Boy Smith, and Jushin Thunder Liger. So we'll see how that is going to play out. Like I said, the only time that they've said that there's tickets going to be available is for Raymond James Stadium, and that is going to be for WrestleMania. Now, that's not to say that they don't get talent, and some of the people who end up attending NXT tapings being at the Hall of Fame ceremony, however they're going to do it. So Chad might be correct in regards of there being some sort of advantage, but it's not going to be paying attendance like WrestleMania is going to be. And WrestleMania, they're using the tagline "Back in Business." So it's the first time that they are actually accepting money for an event, because March 13th of last year was supposed to be a show in Detroit. I was going to get tickets to go since my in-laws live in Windsor, but that got shut down really quickly because a year ago today was when the NBA shut down and fans stopped attending live events for a long while. Chad's also wondering if I think Undertaker is going into the Hall of Fame. It would be good, I think, if he is inducted and being the headliner. But when you're doing the 2020, how do you combine headliner like Undertaker and also headliners like the NWO? So I don't know if the 2021 class is going to have anyone spectacular like that. If it's not this year, then I would say next year when they can have fans in attendance, because that's going to be one of those moments where they want the fans to chant "Thank you, Taker." You could have maybe Kane be a big one, but I would actually induct them both in the same class. Like you had Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross in the same class and stuff like that. So I don't know who would actually fill out the rest of the 2021 inductee list. There could be somebody big, but not big as Undertaker for that. So yeah. And one last thing before we look at the standings for the Ontario March Madness is that this Saturday is going to be Impact Wrestling's Sacrifice event. I believe it's going to be on Impact Plus, so it's not a pay-per-view. And you have Havoc and Nevaeh taking on Tennille Dashwood and Kyle with nope, I can't remember anything. Kyle with a K, and that's going to be a intergender tag team match. On that one, I can see Havoc and Nevaeh end up winning that one. Caleb with a K, that's what it is. Havoc and Nevaeh probably picking up the winner on that one. Decay is going to take on Reno Scum. I can see Decay picking up that victory. Chris Sabian and James Storm are going against Violent by Design in a tag team match. And I'm going to go with Violent by Design taking the victory on that one. Eddie Edwards is going to take on Brian Myers in a hold no harms match. So it's pretty much going to be a hardcore matchup, and it's unsanctioned, I guess, in regards to if they get injured, they're not going to hold Impact responsible for their injuries. TJ, which I can see, surprisingly, I'm going to say Brian Myers picking up that victory. He hasn't been the enhancement talent that he was used primarily for in WWE. TJP is taking on Ace Austin in an X Division championship match. I see TJP retaining his title. The Good Brothers taking on Finn Juice. They're the team from Japan, which is David Finlay and Juice Robinson. That's for the Impact Tag Team titles. I see the Good Brothers end up retaining. Deonna Purrazzo is defending the Knockouts title against ODB. I can see a new women's champion or Knockouts champion in ODB. The Knockouts tag team titles are online, and Fire and Flava are going to go against Jordan Grace and Jazz. This is a long time that these teams have gone against each other. Another opportunity for Jordan Grace and Jazz. I can almost see Jordan Grace and Jazz losing, and there be a split there into a feud. Jazz is getting a little extra life post-retirement by doing this, so why not one last big feud, even with Big Mama Pump, Jordan Grace. And then the main event is going to be Rich Swann defending, well, not necessarily defending. Rich Swann and Moose are going to go against each other to unify their titles, the Impact Wrestling Championship and the TNA Championship. And the winner of that match will go on to face Kenny Omega at Rebellion in a title for title match as well. For that one, I got thinking that there's not going to be a winner. They want to merge the titles, I get that, but I can see them not doing it, making a three-way match, and Omega winning all three belts and holding them at the end of the night. Excuse me. So that's my thought, is they're going to find some way of maybe even Omega is going to be there and cause problems, and that's what we're going to set up a three-way match. It's not on pay-per-view. This one is it's Impact Plus on Saturday. So you're not wasting any money getting a non-finish. And if you're going to get a three-way match going into the other, why not? So like I said, that's Impact Wrestling Sacrifice happening this Saturday. I'll be back in just a moment.
If you want a variety of wrestling news and history, look no further than the Scumbags of Wrestling family of shows.
on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. Join Shawn, Steven, and Jonesy as we look for the best of the best and break it all down in a unique tournament format on Fantasy Warfare Tournament. Then Thursdays at noon, take a look back at the rich history of our great sport with This Week in History. Relive title changes, births, deaths, and some of the best events of all time. Finally, join us for the latest in wrestling news, show results, and predictions Thursday nights at 8 p.m. for the Scumbags Wrestling Podcast. The Scumbags Wrestling can be found on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Instagram, along with our audio versions on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you get your podcasts from. We're a proud part of the Ontario Indie Wrestling Podcast Network and the Johners Podcast Network. Okay, we're back, and as you probably got a little peek, the Ontario Indie Road Trip. Normally, we usually started our shows before COVID talking about the Ontario indie scene. There hasn't been too much to go with lately, but certain little things are popping up here and there, and we're doing our part on our end as well. So just want to remind you that Battle Zone is coming soon at Battle Arts Academy after Hamilton Wrestling Entertainment acquired it when Anthony Corelli ended up selling it to go live in Bruce Peninsula and retire a bit. He actually is going to be a partner with Hamilton Wrestling Entertainment in their venture, but they are getting ready to introduce Battle Zone, and so you want to stay tuned for more news on that one. As I said, Anthony Corelli is the new partner with Hamilton Wrestling Entertainment, and of course, you can look for Hamilton Wrestling Entertainment coming soon to Kojigo sometime this month if it hasn't already arrived. I don't get Kojigo here in London, so I'm not overly sure if that's happened yet. So be on the lookout for that if you're in the area that holds Kojigo as your service provider for internet, cable, phone, and everything else that they provide. Backyard Pro Season 3 is coming soon. Alexia Nicole recently posted about it, and you can check out GoFundMe to help make Season 3 happen. Their goal is about $1,200, I believe. They're not begging people for a donation or anything. You can even send words of encouragement, but just knowing that if you are able to help out in any way, that's going to cut down the costs of what it is to do Backyard Pro, because Backyard Pro doesn't just go in one spot. It's not just one person's backyard. It is a whole bunch of different locations so that they can stay safe in this COVID environment and still put together some matches in different backyards. Or I believe I saw Cookie and I can't remember Saber's name, but they ended up wrestling in an area where there was a dock and stuff like that in, I think, Season 1 of Backyard Pro. There's only a couple episodes per season, so check it out on YouTube and probably Facebook. You can get all the links there. So Backyard Pro Season 3 is looking to start up very shortly. Now, on our end of things, keeping the Ontario scene going as much as we can is our little thing right here, and that is the Ontario Indie Wrestling March Madness Tournament Season 3, or third year for it, and where you have votes every day at 7 a.m. and 12 noon. I'm taking care of one side of the bracket, and Steven's taking care of the other side. So you have 2 chances to vote each day, and you can end up seeing who makes it through to the finals. I'm going to put up the brackets right now, and you can see where our progression has been this week. And I'm going to switch over so I can zoom that up. So we have from the North Division, Violet Lee beat Dexter Grimm. Alec Realm lost to Scumbag Gates. Holden Albright beat Ethan Dukes. Sebastian Suave went over Joey Allen. Pretty Ricky beat Warhead. Shiloh beat Kevin Blackwood. Travis Moore beat Mike Bailey. John Greed beat Stone Rockwell. The Battle of the Tylers, Tyler Arrow ended up beating Tyler Hill. And the two-time winner, Tyson Dukes, fell yesterday to Josh Alexander. Right now, if you go to our Facebook page, you can see how you can vote for Alessandro Del Bruno taking on Daniel Garcia. Now, to look at the standings over on the east and west side of things, Shane Saber lost to Steve Brown. Casey Spinelli beat Rosemary. Allison Kay lost to Lionel Knight. Kyle Boone beat Nova. Jay Loon advanced over Jordan James. Ethan Page, AEW's latest acquisition, beat Sabrina Kyle. Kevin Bennett, the Smash Wrestling champion, lost to the former champion, Tarek. Matt Cash beat Jim Strider. Jody Threat over Idris Abraham. And right now you can vote for Joe Coleman and Channing Decker. Also later on this week, we're going to be finishing off round one, and you're going to see Mark Wheeler against Justin Sane, Puff against Space Monkey, Rodney Matthews against Scotty O'Shea, Michael Grayson against Alexia Nicole, Cody Deaner against Bia, and Brent Banks against John Atlas. Over on my side of the bracket that I'm presenting, you get tomorrow Brian White against Psycho Mike Rollins, The Muscle against Gabriel Feroza, CC Moss against Von Vertigo, Frankie TM against Carter Mason. Some of these matches would be amazing to see live in person. And The Wanderer, Wade Allen, taking on Bella Bronx in the final of the first round. So, like I said, join us every morning at 7 a.m. and afternoon at 12 p.m. So you can see who's going to advance, vote daily, be a part of this. Like I said, 2 years in a row, Tyson Dukes ended up winning, and he is now to the wayside. I'm going to say the competition's wide open. Maybe Josh Alexander is going to be the guy to beat. Maybe he's going to meet up with his former tag team partner of the North, Ethan Page, in the other side of the bracket. But we're going to bring it down to whoever is in the finals on March 31st and announce it April 1st, who is the winner of this year's tournament. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being a part of that. So before we get out of here, as you see, we're playing around with some new graphics and everything. And I have a couple things that I can also announce. You've seen that we're part of Pro Wrestling Tees. ProWrestlingTees.com/Scumbags Wrestling. And you have our 4 designs that we're allowed to have right now as a brand new store. And it's our original design with the Superstars of Wrestling parody. The Ontario comic book shirt. It's a couple dollars more than the other shirts, but all the money raised from the sales of those are going to Steven's Wrestling Journey. And so it's still going to go to charity on that one. Then we have our Raw is War tribute shirt and the Scumbags podcast t-shirt in royal blue, because that's one of my favorite ways of having that shirt. It just pops out so really nice. And it's based off the Survivor Series logo. So go to our store, Pro Wrestling Tees /Scumbags Wrestling, and you can pick up a t-shirt for $20. Of course, prices are in US, but $20 and $21.99 for the comic book one. And we're going to get the word out there and have some fun. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is show this one. Yeah, I believe it's this one. And just as simple as that, you see that we're coming up with the Scumbags Prediction League. More rules and details are coming up on April 1st. So there's going to be a big episode of announcements and some changes going on. We're updating our website so you can access all the details on that one, scumbags.ca, and that'll relaunch on April 1st as well. But just imagine a whole season or year long of making predictions for wrestling pay-per-views, whether it be WWE, NXT, AEW, and Impact Wrestling, earning points and eventually becoming the winner after a couple of different brackets, which we'll explain later on. But the winner is going to come out with a very good prize. We're working with our sponsor potentials right now, and by April 1st should have everything in place, and you'll love the details and just want you to be interactive, love wrestling, enjoy wrestling, and make great predictions and win good prizes, including t-shirts from our Pro Wrestling Tees store. So I can definitely tell you that's part of the prizing, but there's more to come. So stay tuned as we start building things up and make some more big announcements along the way. I believe that is everything I have to talk about this week. So I want to thank everybody that's watching on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. We are part of the Ontario Independent Wrestling Podcasting Network here in Ontario and Canada, and also the Johners Podcasting Network in the UK. Give all our members a listen. There's a lot of different genres of ways of presenting the wrestling world to everybody, whether you want interviews, game shows, news, history. We got it all. Different podcasters throughout the globe, all doing it for the love of wrestling. So join them, give them some love, share, and yeah, I hope everybody has a great week, and we'll see you next week on, sorry, I do have one other thing. A little shout out for Steven. He would normally do it himself. Slugging with Stephen O'Neill on cwnonline.ca. That's a weekly Q&A that he does with independent wrestlers here in Ontario. And this week is Tyler Arrow. So check that out. He's done Sebastian Suave, Jim Strider, a couple others that are in the tournament are coming up soon. But yeah, I think this is at least week 8 most of his weekly series on CWN Online. So check that out and give it a read. Some good insights from the talent that you may or may not know. And they're not your typical questions either. So check out Slugging with Stephen O'Neill every Tuesday at 6 p.m. So that, I believe, concludes everything. And I wish you all a good night. Join us for Fantasy Warfare Tournament and This Week in History. Have a good night.